At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why, since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and as always, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I'm excited to be doing this episode because I've been seeing a lot of stories from different industry partners that are going up about the the awesome things that dispatchers and call takers are doing with their technology. And this is one of those episodes. And as soon as I saw it, I knew that there was more to the story. Of course, there's always more to the story. And I wanted to get this person on to kind of talk about it, to tell their story, but as well as talk about this this other just impactful story that that I had seen on social media. So really quick though, a big shout out to patrons. As always, thank you so much for the patrons. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, and especially those who watch, listen, and share and support. So thank you so very much. You can check out bonus stuff going on over at patreon.com/WTT podcast, and the Dispatchers Roundtable as well as Open Mic Live are going to end up being put into an audio version as well. They've always only been live broadcasts for the ones that I've been doing on social media, but now there's going to be an audio piece, and that is going to be an added perk for those who are patrons. So they're going to be getting those as well. So if you want to jump in on that, again, patreon.com/WTT podcast. Again, thank you all very much for being here. And my guest today is Monique, and she is the Deputy Director out at Cheyenne County Emergency Communications out of Nebraska. Hey, how's it going?
All right, and yourself?
I'm doing okay. The weather over here is getting a lot better. I don't know how it is for you over there. I know I've got a good friend, Halcyon of the Dispatch Lab out of Nebraska. And I think one of the last times I asked her about, and this is probably a few weeks ago now, but that I asked her about the weather, it was in the negatives. Like it was freezing over there.
Oh, yeah. We were negative 30 a few weeks ago. It was 70 over the weekend. So it's Nebraska weather.
That's pretty crazy. That's a crazy jump. to go from that to, where it is now. Yeah, it was like 64 yesterday, and I think it's supposed to be about the same today. The weather is just crazy all the time. Yeah. It's like 911. You don't know.
It is.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Wait for the next 5 minutes. It'll change.
Yeah, exactly. You go from a moment where you're just, okay, I don't know what's going on or what's going to happen, and then bam, everything is just nuts.
Yeah.
It's but it's kind of what I miss about 911 as well. I've been out of it now for 7 years. This July will be 8 years that I've been out of dispatch after doing it for 13 and a half years. And I miss going in, and of course the incident types will end up being the same. The incident type. However, the situation,
always different.
Yes, there's always some other dynamic that gets added in, and it's just when you think, and you can, you've probably noticed this as well, but when you think you've heard the craziest thing or most outrageous thing, another call comes in, you're like, okay, this one takes the top tier.
Yeah, you don't challenge them. You don't challenge the fates. They will come up with something even more stupid, even more crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited to have you on today because I want to learn more about you, as well as my audience to learn more about you. And then, of course, to talk about this impact story as well. But to start off, how did you get into dispatching to begin with? Do you come from a law enforcement family, or did you just kind of jump in?
Not law enforcement. I have a lot of nursing doctors in my family. People, we definitely want to help and serve. I don't want to deal with blood and guts, and I know patients in the ER. I've heard horror stories, and I was always afraid I'd tell them to shut up or get over it. And so I came here where I definitely can't tell them to shut up or get over it.
Right.
But a good friend worked at the jail and said, hey, dispatch is looking. I had a kid, and no job was really working out schedule-wise. I was doing kind of retail type stuff, and I needed something better and something that was consistent with hours. So I got hired on to do the swing shift at 3 to 11, and that worked out great with my husband's schedule at the time. And so that's what we did. He started a new job. We needed insurance, and county benefits were really good. So I did it, and it scared the heck out of me.
Well, we will get to that here in just a moment. But so, you've got this this background where, family is doing all these other things. And like you said, you don't want the blood and guts or anything like that. But of course you hear about it, right? You hear about all these different types of stories. And then, you add that to also your experience with retail. Now I'm in the same, like, I feel you there. I was in the same spot where when I first started out dispatching, all I had was retail experience, like retail management experience. So for me, and as well, as for you, you kind of had some of that training customer service wise already, right?
Oh yeah. I can tell people very nicely with a smile, even when I want to strangle them, It'll be okay. Somebody's coming. They'll call you back when they can.
Yeah, because there's a lot that goes in there. And when you're working in retail and you got people who are pissed off because, they're trying to return something, but they still want that discount when they get it again or something, they want something in return. You have to figure out how to navigate it so it ends in a smooth way, right? Because you still have other customers there. It doesn't stop. So everyone is seeing how things are going on. It's just like 911. You are with a specific call, and sometimes you're switching between different calls depending on how busy it is. And again, just like the retail part, that there's always a customer there. In 911, there's always somebody calling in. It doesn't stop. It keeps going and going. So you have to navigate it. So you already had some of that experience already coming in with, the crazy calls or things that you've heard about, the guts and gore, and then you've got the customer service. So you had some good stuff already coming into it.
Fast food would have been a good one. I wish I had some fast food experience with it too, but I'll stick with what I had.
So then what was that like for you in the beginning then? Like, did you get it? So since you had a friend already that was working in, law enforcement, that was working there in the jail and had been telling you about this job that was coming up. Did you get a chance to go in and kind of sit there and see what they do, or did you just jump right in?
I actually was passed on from the hiring board. I got the rejection letter, and the person that they did go with, as she got through training and it wasn't for her, so they called me up. And so I hadn't done a ride along or anything, or a sit along. And so I just kind of jumped in. I gave them the fair warning that, the toilet paper commercial with the bears will make me cry. And I tear up easy over stupid things. But, I will do it and I will push through it. And as long as you don't mind me crying over toilet paper commercials and other things, that we can get through this. And they were like, just don't cry on every call. And so that's what I try and do. And so far I've been pretty successful at not crying on every call. So, but I have a few times maybe.
Well, and so you went through the hiring process, and obviously you've been there 7 years and a deputy director. So you did good right in the beginning and everything. But what was that like for you, I guess, then going in and, just kind of looking at everything, seeing how, you've got all these monitors, you've got all this other stuff. I mean, was it overwhelming at all going in?
I was more terrified than I'd ever been in my life, that people were going to call me and I was going to be in charge of saving their lives, to put out their fires, to do everything, that it was going to fall on my lap. We're a really, really small agency, and there's a lot of times where it's only one dispatcher on. And it scared me to death. I didn't want to be alone for the longest time, and I wasn't. Training was a nice process, and learn that the 911 calls aren't always the scariest. I didn't want to answer. That high-pitched ring made me, it did horrible things to my blood pressure. My first 911 call was probably asking about a lost dog. And so that helped get over the scary part of 911 calls. But I was terrified to come in and do this job. It was so, I grew up watching Rescue 911. And so I knew some of those calls, and I miss Rescue 911 the way it was, but that's what I grew up with. I remember a little boy on that show had gotten his arm ripped off in a washing machine one time, and that call stuck with me from when I was 6. But I wanted to be there. I wanted to be that person that helped, that at the end of the day somebody was alive because of what I did. So, and I get to do that, and I'm so thankful for that.
I'm right there with you. I've said it many times, and I will always say it. I loved that show. Rescue 911 was one of my favorite shows as well, and I thought it was the coolest thing how these people were getting help from those answering these calls and these stories and everything. And of course, a lot of those stories, even though some of them seemed intense, they all had good endings, right? And of course, it's a show. They want people to keep coming back.
Yeah, they're not going to tell you all the bad things that happen.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then, when you get into it and stuff, and you're starting to experience it, then you're like, oh, I mean, there's way more to this than
so much more
than just these one stories. So yeah, favorite show, loved it, but there was so much more to it. I mean, there was so many things you have to memorize. There was, the dynamic of working with those out in the field and juggling them, as well as all these different calls that are coming in, especially if you're by yourself. So I was by myself in the first center that I worked at. It was actually a small police department where I worked. We were on 8 hours alone, just us. And there would be 2, sometimes 3 officers out, 3 if it was on the weekend. But it was just me. So there was so many different things that were going on. But for you all, you said sometimes there's only one of you on. So do you work 8 hours as well, or 12?
With COVID, we flirted with a 12-hour shift idea. If anybody went down because of COVID, we were going to go to a 12-hour shift. And we had one person who had to quarantine, and most everybody liked it. Everybody gets every other weekend off as a 3-day weekend.
Very nice.
And so we've not ever gone back to an 8-hour shift. We continued with 12-hour shifts. Myself and our director do 8-hour shifts. And then if anybody calls in sick or goes on vacation, we cover. So we have 3 people on over a 24-hour period. We have a day, a mid, and a night. And the mid covers the busy part of the middle of the day for 12 hours from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And that way we don't have anybody alone for too long during busy times. So that's worked out well for us, and I think we're going to keep it.
That's good, because there were some times when I was alone that things would go to hell. And I remember, so let's see if I can explain this. There was my console that I'm sitting at. Behind me was, there were a couple of shelves, and they were full of different folders and information that we used. So I remember, and I can see it in my head right now, I remember sitting there and pushing myself off the console to roll and spin, to turn around to grab a folder and then spin back to start working on whatever it was that I needed to do. Like, I was constantly spinning in there. And that was, that's basically a depiction of how crazy it was getting, just spinning around, because there was so much stuff that was going on. So I can understand that, that intensity, how intense it can get when there's only one person there. So how long did your training last, and what was that training like for you when you're first starting out?
My training was, I believe, gosh, it felt like forever as well as super fast at the same time. I think it was about 2.5, 3 months, going through everything with our, at the time, deputy director. And he, it was basic. These are the calls. This is how to use everything. These are the way we want you to ask questions. This is how you dispatch it out. And don't be afraid of saying things. And I apparently took that one to heart. And my first radio transmissions, I made some friends with the officers just because they loved to hear what stupid thing I was going to say on the radio. And a baby in a swing at the park that somebody felt the mother wasn't paying enough attention to. And she was afraid that the baby would fall out of the swing. But I think I dispatched it out saying, she's afraid that the baby's going to do what babies do, which is false. And so, but
right.
Just how I was going to describe something when I didn't trust my words at the time yet. So I was very nervous on how I was going to talk on the radio when I was young.
It's funny to think back at some of that, right? Because a lot, it's when you first get in there, and especially if you don't have any of that experience or anything, it is kind of, it's nerve-wracking, right? Because you want to do such a good job. You also don't want to sound like a goof to those out on the road or anything either. I remember a couple times sitting there with my trainer and looking at them and saying, so how do you want me to say this? Like, how should I say this exactly? And they would kind of chuckle at me and say, just say it how you want to say it. Yeah, just talk. And I remember kind of sweating a little bit and thinking, okay, I'm going to screw this up. I know I'm going to. And I would key up and I would, just say, it's Gilligan Central to, whatever. and they would say, you need to speak up. I'm like, oh, I mean, yeah, no, you're right. Like,
yeah,
it was something else. But once you start doing it more and you get more comfortable, of course, but it's all in doing it. You have to just do it, right?
Yeah, and you have to get over the fear of saying the wrong word or mispronouncing something, and just whatever, you said it, live with it. It's out there. Doesn't matter what Scannerland thinks, what the officers think. If anything, you made them laugh, you made their day a little bit better, and now we'll move on and it'll be okay.
Yeah. Yes, I fully agree, because it's good to have a little bit of humor, especially in this job, because it doesn't always have a lot of humor.
No.
There are a lot of dark moments. There are some rare good moments. And then of course there's the humor in the middle. Some of it might be dark, but if you can find some sort of humor, you won't burn out.
Right.
Or at least not fully. I
Not
say
as
that
quickly.
because yeah, I say that because I hit a burnout stage as well, like 6 years in, and I was able to make it back. I made it back out of there. But it was kind of switching my mindset a little bit on how to think about different things, how to laugh at certain things. For instance, like we're talking about right now, screwing something up on the radio when you're trying to
Oh
get it
yeah.
out there, when there's something that you should be reading and you don't read it and you just go ahead and say it before reading it,
Mhm.
and then you mess up. I would
Yeah.
chuckle on the radio and I would say, let me try that again. And I would just do it again.
Oh, it's always fun to try and make your partner laugh on the radio if you can too. Like
Yes.
they're boloing anything just to get them to laugh while they're reading off a vehicle, you know.
Yeah,
So,
that is always fun as well. It was such a good time. You're making me miss dispatch even more. um, so you get through your training. We
mhm.
talked about your first call there and all, but what I guess what were some of the things that once you got more comfortable and more into your career that kind of really solidified the fact that this job was for you?
The make it or break it
Mhm.
night or call, everybody's got to have that call where they question, was this the right idea? I had my deputy trying to arrest somebody at a scuzzy motel,
Mhm.
and two high school age kids leaving an event at the high school got hit by a car. And that's everybody I had. The PD went over to the kids hit by the car, and my deputy's at this hotel. And then the person jumps my deputy, and he has them pinned on the ground, but he can't arrest them because they're flailing, and I can't break anybody off. Everybody's busy doing their stuff, and I'm desperately trying to get a hold of State Patrol and ready to scream and cry and walk out the door, but there's nobody else there. And I finally get him help, and he's fine. And he's the little brother to one of my best friends as well. And, I can't let anything happen to him because of that. I'll never hear the end of it, even if I quit.
Mhm.
So that was a horrible night for her that day. The kids that got hit were actually her husband's step siblings too, or adopted type siblings. So it was all her family. If anything went wrong, it was going to come back to my very best friend.
Mhm.
So I pushed through it and finally got him help, and the kids were okay. It wasn't that bad. And one of my coworkers was like, hey, I heard a lot of sirens. I came down. Do you need a smoke? Do you need a break? And I was like, yeah, just let me walk. And I cooled off and I went home that night, and I was like, nobody died. And so we did it. I did it. Kids got help. My deputy got his help. I can do that. There was multiple things in the air at one time, and I did it. It wasn't pretty, but we got through it. So I came back to work excited the next day. Didn't want the same calls again, but we could do this. It'll be
Right.
okay. We can do it. So that's how my make it or break it night went. And it wasn't fun, but we did it. And I don't know why I'm royalty and I'm we, but we did it. The community did it. They had faith in me, and we survived it. And not every night, as I tell new people, you can go home from a good day of work and somebody has died.
Mhm.
You can still have a good day and somebody has died. Doesn't mean that it's a bad day at work. It just means it was that person's time. And hopefully
Right.
it was just a medical call. But as long as we do what we can do and get the help and get everybody there, it's a good day. So I had a good day that night.
That's an excellent way to look at it. And you're right. There are times that I can remember leaving from dispatch myself and just feeling, drained. You know, you have all of these calls that are coming in, and sometimes you wonder, you know, could I have done anything different? Is there anything that I could have done that maybe would have? And you know, of course, you did your job. You did everything that you could do with the resources or whatever that you have. And you're right. It was a good day, no matter how, you know, you end up looking at it. It sucked, and hopefully, you know, certain things don't happen again. But
Yeah.
it comes with it, and that's awesome that you tell that to your new people coming in, because I feel like when you have the buy-in from those at the top and they really understand what it's like as well, you can pass on that information to that next generation that's coming in to let them know that even though it might get real hard sometimes, it's still good. You're still okay, because
Yeah,
that's also stuff that they need to know, right? You want people to know that when they're coming in.
absolutely. You know, bad things happen to good people every day. That's why we're here. That's why we have a job, and dumb and stupid people, they keep us fully employed.
Yeah.
You know, just get the information and then get it back out and get the people out that you need to. Now, also let my people know that I live 3 blocks away. And if at any point they need me, call and I'll be here. We are small, which helps in the sense that, you know, myself and our director, we're admin, but we're not separate from the console, and we still do plenty of hours behind the console ourselves. So,
Mhm.
and I feel so sorry for all the places that don't, and their admins don't have their back and don't understand. You have my sympathy. So,
Do you feel like this call and maybe similar calls that you took might have been part of the reason, well, for one, that helped you build more of your confidence? Because you said in the beginning, you know, you were terrified. You know, there were certain things that you were, you know, kind of scared about, but you were able to build your confidence. Do you think this call, maybe not exactly this call, but this call contributed to building your confidence even more on the fact that you could do this? Because you said it yourself. You thought, I did this. It wasn't pretty, but I was able to do this, and we got through it. Do you feel like that was a, you know, contributing factor to building that confidence, to moving up to, you know, whether you became a trainer or jumped straight to deputy director? Did that help?
I think every call helps.
Hmm.
There's something to be learned. Maybe not a dog's barking call, but everything of substance, there's something to be learned from every call. And we could probably all do something a little better on every call if you learn from it and you continue to want to learn and strive to be better every time.
Hmm.
But the confidence, every call continues to boost my confidence that, you know, I am doing the right job for me in the right area for me. So I absolutely, the worse the calls, you know, the more confidence they build, but the good calls too, the little things, knowing that you did it right helps reinforce that you are doing it right. Makes it sound like I do a lot of them wrong. I really don't do a lot of them wrong.
No. You make perfect sense that, you know, those calls as well, those rare good ones that come out. I've heard a lot of people say when they get either a thank you, and it doesn't always have to be a thank you, but whether it's a thank you or it's one of those rare good ones, that it's those types that they end up hearing or experiencing or whichever, that they remember why they wanted to do the job in the first place, or why it is that they do what they do, and it's because they're helping. So you make perfect sense, especially with those rare good ones, because that reinforces, you know, that thought and those feelings that, yeah, I'm in the place that I'm supposed to be. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of my calls that I remember that I hold on to are the bad calls, not necessarily that they ended bad.
Hmm.
Depends on who you are. Suicides, and there was a dog mauling in town that was pretty horrific. And you know, those are our big calls, and we don't get a lot of really big calls. We're a really, really small community. So those big ones stay with me probably more than all of the little ones, but those are the ones that have the most information to learn. So those stay with me, but I'm happy to be on the phone with a mother of somebody that has just committed suicide and being that person, verbally holding and hugging them, getting them through until somebody is there to physically grab them and start putting the pieces back together. And I've done that for a mom. She had to go to the bathroom afterwards because she was just in a total state of shock. And I was like, okay, well, let's go to the bathroom. You're not hanging up on me. And I don't care. Like, we all pee. So go to the bathroom. I don't care. I'm not letting you go until there's somebody there to be there with you. And I like that call because I like how I was able to help. It was not a good call for her. It was not a good call for that family, but it was one of my best calls. So even the bad ones are good ones.
Right. Because that's the way you said it. That is, there's so much that you can learn from them. Also the resources, everything that you're putting into it. So I always ask this question, what's your favorite type of call, to take, or radio traffic, or whichever, mostly the calls. And I always say, domestics. And when people hear it sometimes, especially those who don't come from public safety, they look at me side-eyed like, what? Like, why? Kind of a dirty look. Like, why would those be your favorite calls? Why do you want people calling in for that? And it's not because I want people to be in a domestic violence situation. That's not what I'm saying. The reason that those were my favorite calls is because those were the ones that, and like you said as well, that I learned from the most, but those are real high priority calls. That's why I'm there, is to help someone. I want to help them when they're in need. And anything that I can do while we are on the phone to keep that person safe or to get them help, that's what I'm doing. And again, that's what I'm there for. It's different if it's a dog barking or an alarm call or something like that. I would rather take those other types of calls because that's why I'm there.
Absolutely. And you feel good. You get
Yeah.
the shine or a warmth that comes over you that you did what you were trained to do and you saved a life and you helped somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the other calls too that I remember leaving the dispatch center and the door shutting and just, it was a good day. Like
Yeah.
you think about those calls and those people that you helped. You'll probably not talk to that person again, because maybe it's one of those occasions where they did leave their spouse and they're moving forward, or it might be someone who calls again and then you don't hear from them after that. But you get that thought that I was able to help them. I wonder where they're going to be in a few years. I hope that they're still doing good. I hope that all this other stuff. But yeah, you feel good. You go home feeling good, and that's what it's about.
Absolutely.
Now, in these types of calls, in kind of training people, talking to them, like you said, was this kind of your push as well to be a deputy director? And I ask because, a lot of times, people that I've spoken to, some of them have said, I am good exactly where I'm at, taking calls and on the radio. Maybe I'll be a supervisor, but I don't think I'd be able to see myself as a deputy director or director. This is the spot that I want to be in, and I'm happy in this spot and comfortable. Others, there are maybe calls or different situations or other things that have happened where they want to move up into training or they want to move up and be a director or deputy director. What was kind of your push?
There was an opening. I was probably a little selfish, a Monday through Friday with weekends and holidays off was a wonderful idea.
And that's good too. Yeah.
My son was growing up. I thought, I'll get more family time. It was the push that caused my husband and I to not live in the same house anymore, but that's okay.
Mhm.
I have freedoms. I'm still on the console a lot. I cover everybody's sick days. I do more overnights than I did if I had just stayed on my day shift. So I don't know. I don't know why I decided to do this. I thought politics and bureaucrats sounded like fun because I have a mental illness apparently. So
Well, from what it sounds like to me, though, is you have a passion for this job, like fully. Like you might have been terrified in the beginning,
I
but
could not do anything else anymore. I am ruined. I couldn't do anything else.
yeah. So there you go. From that time, being terrified in the beginning, but obviously gaining so much confidence in your love and passion for this industry, this job. I mean, you moved up. So there might have been that selfishness of, I want to spend time with family. I want to be able to do this or that, and taking a chance at moving up. But I bet you anything, those who brought you up into that spot, they see your work history. They see how you work with everyone else. You were the best person for the job, obviously, because you got that deputy director position. But also I can hear it when you're talking about, basically being a leader and telling those who are coming up, you might have a bad day, but it's still good. We're here. We're making it, and we're doing this together. So just listening to you from this little bit of time that we've been here talking to each other, I can see that there are many reasons that you would want to move up. And I think a lot of it too is just kind of, to share that knowledge, that experience, the love that you have as well to those who are coming in, to be able to learn from you and, help those in the community, those who are calling in.
No, I appreciate you saying that. That's very kind. I do absolutely love it. I couldn't do anything else anymore. I try and think what that would be like, and somebody calling in wanting, I don't know, whatever I would do. I'm like, well, is anybody dying?
Mm-hmm.
No, then stop yelling at me. Quit freaking out. It's fine. We'll get it done. Because unless you're dying, you're not going to get a reaction out of me, I guess. So just whatever. And if you are, okay, well, let's deal with it. Hopefully you're not doing CPR on yourself, but we'll try and stop you from dying.
That would be interesting. Yeah. Yeah. No. And one of those things that I found as well with callers is that being straightforward and real versus kind of being vague and wishy-washy, you get a lot more out of somebody by just being straightforward.
Oh, the mom voice is wonderful with a caller. Just call them by their name and grab their attention and be like, this is how it's going to happen. And I need you to do it or you're grounded. And they do it.
And that's good because, when you're on the phone, there's a certain way to do it. You can be firm with someone and not be, a jerk and not end up on the news. You can be firm with someone, and that's okay, because sometimes you have to, pull them back. This is the situation. This is what's going on. We're getting help out to you. They've been going out to you already for a while now, but I need you to answer these questions so that everyone can be safe and so that you can get help as fast as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they end up doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with kid callers, though, kids, man, they're probably the best. So some of them are the best ones to get information from and who just listen. I don't know what happens when we become adults that sometimes we don't listen. Maybe that's it, because we're like, no, man, I'm an adult. You're not going to tell me what to do.
Yeah. No, the kids are great. I've had my nieces called in one time, and I did have to yell at them, and I called them by name, and I was like, stop it, because they're girls and they are girly girls. So it was the end of the world, and they were over dramatic calling and just. Yeah.
So, and your niece knew that it was you? Like, you told her?
I was actually leaving for the day, and they're like, the person that was replacing me was like, I think this is at your sister-in-law's house. And I I jumped on the phone and I listened for the voice and figure out which one of the four it was. And it was actually three of them all on the phone at the same time, so I yelled at them, and I think they were the only person I've ever told to shut up, and told them to shut up and listen. And okay, this is what's going on. Okay, now we can deal with it and fix the problem. And everything was fine. But
well, and I ask if you told them, because the last dispatch center that I worked in, the central dispatch in Allegan County, is the county that I grew up in. And just like you being there, you end up taking calls from people that whether it be friends or family. They're people that and I would walk the line sometimes on some of the people who called on whether to say my name, who I was, because sometimes with people who call in, you tell them who you are, they might not give you a bunch of information because now they're embarrassed. Now they're speaking to somebody who knows their business. And with friends, unless it was a good friend, I wouldn't say who I was. They might ask me my name, but they didn't know me by Ricardo. In the area, they knew me as Rich. They didn't know me as my actual given name. But with family, I would tell them that it was me, and I would actually say it's Richie, because that's how they knew me. And they would go, "Oh, okay," and they would feel comfortable.
yeah.
But sometimes you got people who call in. You got to kind of, by a case-by-case basis, do I tell them who I am, or do I just let it ride?
Yeah, no, I told the nieces who it was because I was going to go over to their house and pick them up. We had to load up in the car and go over to the hospital. Most people, I won't. I said repeatedly, small community. There's not a lot of people with my name, so I hate giving out my name. So
I hear you. There was one there was one time that excuse me, I had there was a period of time when I was working in dispatch that the county prosecutor, for every domestic call that was going in, we were a witness and we were getting subpoenaed for every single one. And I remember going in, and I remember them telling me, just come into our office, just come to the window and come in. And I said, okay. And so I go into the office, and there's a few people who were sitting there that I remember the descriptions from the call that I had taken. And I thought, is this the victim here? Like, I don't know what to think. So then I go up to the window, and I'm trying to kind of whisper and say, this is Ricardo from dispatch. And they're like, oh, you're the guy who's here for, whatever case. And I just stood there and I thought, why would you do that? And I turned around and I saw she was looking at me. And then I went in and I thought, I think that's like my caller right there. Oh, sorry about that. Like, dude, like, I don't want to end up getting like taken out or something because I was the call taker, like that's going to suck. But then that day I'm waiting with other witnesses in one of the rooms, and I'm waiting forever for them to call me to go in so that I can, get on the stand and say what I heard. And no one ever came. So I thought, all right, well, I'm going to go and check and see what's going on, because this is taking forever. I go and I open the door to go walk into the courtroom. It's completely cleaned out.
Oh, gosh.
There's nobody there. They had adjourned for the day and no one ever came and told me.
I have lucked out. I've never been called to court once. I don't know how. I'm the only one here, I think, that has it.
Knock on wood. You just jinxed it.
I know, but I never get called for jury duty now. It seems like I've never been called to court.
Man, well, hopefully it stays that way. I did end up going on the stand the following day, and they apologized up and down, and all I could do was laugh, because what am I going to be mad about? Like, okay, it was a mistake, whatever. It sucked, but whatever. I'm not going to waste my time being upset. So I ended up going on the stand, and I think I was up there for like 30 minutes or something, going through this whole thing. But yeah, that was the only time that I actually had to go up there and be on there. It was an interesting experience for sure. So I want to segue here a little bit into this impact story. So we've gone through and we've talked a lot about your history and stuff, which is awesome. You've been there 7 years now. There's a lot that you've been doing. You got in there green. You kind of had some experience story wise, but as well as the retail experience and stuff for customer service. And then, being terrified in the beginning to working your way all the way up and becoming the deputy director there, which is amazing. You end up taking a call. So I want to read actually how it was written out, but then kind of talk about some of the stuff, that happened with this here. So this was actually having to do with the use of Rapid SOS for, Rapid SOS is a company for location accuracy and all. And there's so much stuff that they've been doing. And they have been sharing a lot of these impact stories. So this one came out of your center. And this was about, kind of a kidnapping victim. So it says they received a call from a distraught female who claimed she was being held in her abductor's basement for about 7 to 10 days. The caller didn't know where she was, but she managed to get her abductor's phone and call 911. Now, you all had received a location from the nearest cell tower, but only were able to narrow it down to the range of a block. So you all were, thinking on your feet and ended up querying through Rapid SOS to get an exact location. Now, this location ended up dropping a pin literally on the house that she was in, correct?
Not just the house that she was in, but the corner. She was in the southeast corner of the basement. And obviously it's not telling me the basement, but I had her in the southeast corner. So it knew precisely in the house where she was at. And I had the phase 2 of a block and then Rapid SOS. So I had solid confirmation on what door we were going to go knock on. But that call, let's see, like I told you earlier, I did listen to it. So it was a 13-minute and 31-second call. And at 12 minutes and 18 seconds, law enforcement has contact with her. They're there. But I stayed on the line. I wanted to make sure everything was good.
Right.
But for the first 45 seconds of the call, she's crying and mumbling to herself and not answering me with anything. At 45 seconds, she starts to answer that she didn't know what the address was. She didn't even know what the street was. She didn't know where she was at. So, I broke protocol. I was trying to get the information I needed, but I went straight to her name. She wasn't going to help me with that, but I didn't want to lose the caller. She had been upset and not answering. So I grabbed her name, and that way I could address her by her name and keep her focused and keep her with me. And, within 2 minutes of her answering questions from that 45-second mark, I had officers confirming the address they were going to. And 2 minutes after that, so almost 5 minutes into the call, officers are on scene where she's at. Now, it took a little bit of seeing if she could come out, if she would come out, if she was physically able to, if she was locked in, if she was tied up, what was the situation? And, there's a lot of back and forth updating the officers with her answers on all of that. But the fact that Rapid SOS got us there and physically on scene within 5 minutes of a call where she knew nothing was just amazing to me. I was so thrilled that day because I'd had calls where I had no idea where they were at. They had no idea where they were at. And it took 10, 15 minutes to even find that out. So to have somebody there and being saved within 5 minutes was just amazing.
It's awesome to hear stuff like this because I remember as well, years prior to any of this new technology and stuff, doing the same thing, trying to, get a fax to the phone carriers to say, can you ping this? Because we've got a situation that's going on here and we need to be fast. We need to be fast here. And, they wouldn't always be fast. And some of those, we would find out that it would be someone who was just messing on the phone. Some of them, they were legit And it was amazing, that feeling that, we found the person, they're safe, they're okay, we were able to get to them. But then also thinking there's got to be an easier way. Like in a
Yeah.
few years from now, it'll probably be way easier, but we need something now. And that my last time, 2013 was when I finished. July of 2013 was when I finished it in dispatch. So then, a year or two after that is when all of this started really happening with location accuracy, even text to 911. Things were starting to there's starting to be so much more that was going on. And it was refreshing to see all of this and that feeling of finally, thank the Lord,
Right.
stuff like this is coming up. And then, for this situation that with this call that you had, I mean, I can't even imagine the amount of like stress, maybe even in the shoulders when you were done with the call, like, or not even done with the call, in that moment that you were able to pinpoint where that person was at.
Yeah, not knowing at those first few moments when she didn't know where she was at and just crying, and an adult woman crying saying, "I want my mommy," is horrible, because it's just, there's a helplessness, and I want to go find you. And it was a challenge, and it was happily challenge accepted and met, and I was thrilled to have somebody there that quickly. I wish I had had this on previous calls. Rapid SOS has been a wonderful tool, and I think everybody should have it. I'll be a walking spokesman for life for them because of it. I just think it's wonderful that I've found 911 calls that pop up on our maps, if you just have it up and open, that were routing to another county because of the travel direction that the people were at. But they were calling about a person walking on the interstate. So it was really my call. I needed to know it. But the cell phone tower said, well, you're traveling into another county, so I'll just give you to that county. I was able to call them and been like, hey, do you have information for me? And that's so helpful to be able to know calls are coming in and where the callers are going. If people don't use it, it does track direction of travel. It gives you speed and direction of travel, and it stays with them. You don't have to do anything. It just continues to put pins along the route if they're traveling. My lady was not, and so her pins were repeatedly dropping in the exact same spot, and she wasn't moving in the room. She was terrified that she would be killed. She knew he had guns and swords and knives, and she sat on the bed until officers were there to stand her up. And it was a great ending, and she got to go back home to her mom just the way she wanted. And like you had said, there was more to the story. It wasn't a kidnapping, but for her, in her mind, in her situation, it was. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know how she got there.
Right.
And so at that time, that was the emergency. And she was as scared as if it was real. In her head, it was.
Right. Exactly. And even if it wasn't how it started out, you were still able to save someone in distress and pinpointing that location where they were at, which is kind of scary sometimes. And when I say scary, it's because I used to train dispatchers on a text 911 program that also utilized Rapid SOS, and I would sometimes actually I would be in this room and I would be showing them on the screen how it's pinpointing my location, and I would say, this is amazing, but it's also scary because it's that accurate. So that's what I mean by scary. Like, it's scary accurate. Like, it's that good that we're able to find this, but that is a good thing that we're able to finally do things like this, especially when you add in that, the Z axis as well. I'm in the second floor of this house. And when I would do those tests, it would show how high I was up, elevation wise and everything. So it was really cool to have that. And then in your situation here, you were able to find somebody like that.
Absolutely. I think to a citizen that's not in dispatch, to have 2 minutes of unknown, where that's where I was searching for her using everything that I had. That sounds really good. For me, I was, I had to let everybody know 45 seconds of that was me trying the old-fashioned way of asking her questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't use any of my computer stuff, because if she can tell me. So it was beyond fast, but I don't know.
It was a good outcome.
It was a great outcome.
Yeah, it was a good outcome. That's the main thing,
Mm-hmm.
It was a good outcome. So thank you.
To get law enforcement on scene in 4 minutes and 50 seconds from nothing to 4 minutes and 50 seconds is amazing. So I just hope more people use it, and any centers that aren't start to look into it, because there's no reason not to use it.
For sure. And so going into the wrap up of this episode, this has been awesome to have you on, to learn more about you, and especially to talk about this impact story as well. As we go into the wrap up, what is some advice that you have for those who are looking at a service like this, or any other service, or any other new technology? How about that? How about we'll go with that? What is your advice to those who are out there who, might be on the fence of using new technology for 911? What would you say to that?
If your center can afford it, there's no reason not to. It's a liability, in my opinion, to not have anything. And, Rapid SOS didn't cost us anything. It's a service that they provide. So why wouldn't you? If one county over has it and they had a good outcome, and you don't have it and it's a bad outcome, that's just ammo for an attorney. So cover yourself, have all of the tools that you can possibly have. If you have to do cost sharing with another agency, if you can do that, do what you can to make sure that your people have the tools to get the job done. It'll keep them, it'll keep your dispatchers. And I know turnover is great right now, and COVID did not help any of that. So give your people the tools that they need to do their jobs and do it successfully, because nothing will ruin a good dispatcher faster than not having the support and the tools they need to do their job. If you have a great person and they fail constantly because you use outdated equipment, that's on you. You need to give your team the tools they need.
Excellent. Thank you again so much for being on. This has been an honor and a pleasure to have you here to share your story with the audience and those out in the public and everything. So again, thank you very much. Thank you for the job you do, and I will be right back here with you. For those who are watching, listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any, I already said that part. I was almost said it again. If you want to follow us, that's where I was going with it. On Twitter, you can follow us. That's going to be @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. And if you're looking for any bonus content, if you're looking for the Dispatchers Roundtable or Open Mic Live on audio, that's just going to be added here pretty soon for patrons, make sure to check us out. And that's going to be patreon.com/WTT podcast. You'll also, there are tiers there where you'll not only get bonus episodes, but you'll get the early episode releases, discounts to the store, t-shirts, swag, all of that good stuff. Again, patreon.com/WTT podcast. And you can watch this on Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube, along with LinkedIn. And for the audio, you can listen to the podcast 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone.